This is Sunday, January 27th, 2019. Kind of like the final walkthrough after the contractor has left. Just the remaining deficiencies and such. On the front porch, and something that has been mentioned many times, is the cracked shingle tile and the bottom of the fascia board on the door. Put down all new decking, which generally looks good. For some reason, they did leave a gap on a couple of boards. The front railing still has the end board that's displaced. It should have been re-nailed. The ceiling was to be painted, but very little prep work. And we've been over it 3 or 4 times. And these are just representations around the flaking paint. It is an old house, but paint preparation was not done. It's just sprayed over. Marked a lot of the places with painter's tape, but really too many to mark all of them. The window screens were all replaced, and they said they were going to make them, so I assumed they'd make them to fit. But they were installed all with a small trim board at the bottom and a small trim board at the top to make them fit. And I was told that the sidebars come pre-cut, but originally I was told he was going to make them. Home Depot, Lowe's all have lengths of screen framing that is long enough to make them correctly. But all the windows are done that way. Front, side, rear. Another contractor pointed out the bad part is the bottom ones will hold water now, and also there are more penetrations in the wood, which is never good for exterior wood. Thing we went over many times was removing all hardware and filling all holes in the doors and walls and everything. The doorbell was never removed. It's been non-functional forever. Remaining holes from old door hardware still remains. Trim around the window just flakes off. Never was touched with a scraper before it was painted. The interior, inside the door frame, looks kind of nasty, but it's metal, so I don't have an issue with that really. The trim work, as far as flaking paint, or never painted, and again, holes that were just never filled. Just minimal prep work would have taken care of a lot of this before it was gone over. Holes in the door, holes in the door, holes in the door. A lot of this area has overspray from the ceiling texture. Kind of better to show up there on the crown portion, but that was the same as either the ceiling or the wall texture. Flooring turned out beautifully, done by a contractor, local. A big thing was remove nails, remove all hardware. There are staples that were just painted over. Nails still in in the frames. Much easier to remove them before you paint. Makes it easier to paint. Just drips that are just sloppy. Cable hardware that remains. Again, the floors look wonderful. But staples, little nails, hardware, staples and hardware, staples and hardware. And around the electric plate is a hole at the bottom, around the top. All of the windows don't appear like they were ever prepped properly before painted. The interior trim just has a massive amount of flaking and just never been touched before they were painted. And again, nails. The holes that he seemed to have filled up predominantly are the security pin holes. These were pretty consistently filled. Said he was familiar with these types of windows. There's a pin these holes are drilled for, goes into the frame. Security pin is put in. It's just a redundant locking system to the old style. Additionally, windows were going to be repaired to be operable. I don't believe he understood what it took as far as removing the casing on the interior, the little panel, accessing the weight that's in the window frame, and re-roping or doing a chain so that they do stay up. Most of them open now, but they will fall shut and are kind of a danger, have to be pointed out to everyone. Again, flaking paint, just not prepped. The cabinets are all new. Quite a big spot on the wall that was not scraped, so now it's got paint and of course the texture over it, so it's going to look odd when it's done. Other contractors have said they would all have caulked that line between the cabinet and the wall. Just rough paint on the above board trim, and this was cut out to give it greater access to the living area, and that was a new board that was installed. The paint around the kitchen cabinet, we wanted to keep the glass cabinets, but it's just not painted the distance behind the handle. Again, at the top, hardware, old curtain hardware that hasn't been replaced. That kind of roughness can just be scraped with a putty knife for 1 second to make it look nicer. It doesn't have to be sanded. And again, more hardware that was left. And that's the bottom underneath the windowsills, just horribly rough. The other cabinet with it already flaking there. Most likely it was overpainted, cabinet door closed, and then ripped apart when it was opened. The washer dryer connection, the electrical faceplate, just rough. Past HUD inspections would not have passed that. And this was all redone, but just the flaking, just not touched before it was painted. We wanted a double switch so that we could control the lights in the living room from the back door. So the top switch here was overlooked, and they came and put it in later. So now we've got the double switch, two switches rather than a double switch, and the finish around the switch just looks bad. Again, paint preparation just non-existent. Removal of a staple there at the bottom and a screw there at the top. Excess mud at the very top left of the crown. Just should have been hit and knocked off. It's back, big piece of flaking paint on the bottom corner already. Just very rough. Another staple. The cabinet install, the top of the crown, just big wide joint. And again, the other contractors said that they would have caulked that seam between the wall and the cabinet, just give it a finished look. These doors over the microwave are fine. They have an even gap all the way up. The ones over the refrigerator sag quite a bit, and it's noticeable at the joints, and they fall down below the framing. The hole above the cabinets in the wall, it's been there forever and mentioned multiple times, just never repaired. The threshold going into the kitchen, these where I'm standing are the original floors. The kitchen was redecked and a vinyl floor put on top of it. The previous threshold or original one he put in was just an L shape, and the insurance inspector said it was a trip hazard. He replaced this most recently with this, which is still a substantial slope. I don't believe I think it's a corner, it's a 90-degree framing trim piece and not a threshold. What's typically been done in other houses is this type of threshold. It slopes up gently into the level of the new floor, and that's a good threshold. The closet off the living room. Many times we discussed reinstalling that shelf. It has finally been put up. Many times we discussed all these nails and staples to be removed prior to painting, and we still have them all over the place after the final inspection. The plumbing was run in here to replace the water heater, and that in the corner I think is just an old hole that should have been filled where they ran the new pipes up through the floor. Quite a big gap. Looks like the second hole was drilled and the first hole never was filled. And then on the wall, just more staples, just hanging out of the wall, nails, and just a cluster of staples and nails. Mentioned over and over, never done. I probably would have filled the crack, but that's not a biggie. And again, the floors look wonderful. The door, different light, you can see that it has been a patch mark there, but that never was painted around the patch. You get little tacks and overflow. That one on the left there's fiber cloth from a patch that's stuck out of the wall that was just painted over. The electric box, they did a new install, new wire service upgrade, but it's the cover should have been taken off, the wall patched, let it dry, reinstall the cover. Instead, the drywall mud was attached to the cover plate, so when you remove the cover plate, it cracks the plaster, and it's harder to see, but it never was painted where they patched it previously. the front bedroom, bottom left, another nails or flaking paint sticking out. A lot of the doors he did catch from this last time, but a lot of them still have where they were overpainted, closed, it dried, reopened, flakes the paint off. And of course, more staples. Holes in the door, never filled. The problem common throughout is these multi-panel doors have the ledges on them. So now a lot of them have overspray. So we have a texture along that ledge, which was probably from the ceiling of the walls when they orange peeled the walls or knocked down the ceiling. But it just makes it messy. And holes to be filled. Really replaced that lock, but never painted around the trim. There were just too many to really mark all of them, but more holes in the door. Holes and painted over staples inside the closet. Just big nails and screws and holes that just weren't filled. And then at the bottom down there, that was not, the quarter round's not painted. And on the inside of the frame, just not scraped, it's all flaking paint. There you go. And more hooks and nails in the closet. Another spot where it was painted, door closed, and crack the paint off there, and then just pour prep there. Around the front window in the front bedroom, just numerous holes, staples that were left. The side door, the bottom right, is just a cluster, maybe 10, 15 staples. Bottom right, holes, screws, just not removed before painting, which the very first meeting was, this is a requirement. Basic prep. And like I say, all the security holes for the windows, those were the ones that were consistently filled in. Weren't painted over, but they did fill them in. And window pane that was broken. A lot of the windows did not open, so he did make them function so that they opened, but again, the weights and another hole there above the window filled the security hole, but not the hole from the nail. Broken glass, security lock broken, not replaced. And again, most of these windows don't function because the ropes are gone, but they do raise. So if these windows are raised, there's an access panel on the sides, can be removed, access the weight, rerun the rope, and it would have been restored. In the back bedroom, just staples, just painted over staples. This is the plumbing access to the shower in the bathroom. Usually it's access so you can shut the water off if there's a leak or work on it, but they did not plumb it with shut-off valves. So we'll have to have that added. And again, the floors turned out very well. The windows, most of these little dots are screws, staples, and such that weren't removed before painting. The blue up there was there from like 2 or 3 times back. They put the vent on and then they drywall mudded up onto the vent. And on the right-hand side, it's just a big old gaping patch. And there's a staple sticking up the top of the crown. staples, holes, flaking paint. Where the door was overpainted and cracked at the edges again. And some patches down here where they used, it looks like drywall mud, but just never went back and painted over it to cover it up. The doors were sprayed, but with a loose handle. You can see they didn't turn it, they didn't spray all the way around, and the handle's loose. The roller is broken up on the accordion doors. It's only half there. And again, the holes and the staples. This top of the shelf, just globs of mud and scraping debris. I didn't realize they did any prep, but it's just construction debris and new mud and screws and holes. And the bathroom, the toilet, round toilet. There are probably 30 toilets at Lowe's, but this is probably the only, I think they have one round one. It was $10 cheaper than an elongated one. So his explanation was that's what the plumber chose. Whatever. The bathroom vanity, the old one, I liked the look, the historic look, so we wanted to keep it, but just not painted. Paint on the knob, paint on the mirror, just not painted around the hinges. Then the classic painter drip on the corner, just that I don't care type issue. And then the back side of the frame on the wall, turn it maybe, but it's just never was filled, never was prepped. It's got a big crack all the way down. The inside, I mean, just the line of caulk would have been nice. Finish it off. Oh, that looks horrible. The new window that he installed, the hole in the bottom corner, just never was caulked and filled. Other contractors are saying they were very shocked that the metal trim of the new shower tile was not caulked to the wall. I thought the tile turned out very nicely. Nice pattern, picked that out, floor decor. Up around the top of the tile, it's kind of hard to see, but it's like it was wiped with a mud covered cloth, so the paint has the coating of like wet mud on it. All the surface tile never was given any type of final wipe down. The door, this good or bad example of just all the overspray that's on the towel bars. Now to either be replaced or try to clean them up. But the texture on the panels for the door, I don't know if that can ever be removed or not. The bathroom vanity was installed up against the wall, so we've got now a line where it was caulked to the wall and removed. We had to have him move it because it was installed butt up against the shutoff valve so that you could not turn the valve off. It was in the up and down position, the one on the left, and the sidewall was up against it, so you couldn't turn it. The reason that brown board on the far left is cut out like that is so that they could have shoved it all the way up against it
Also, I thought he broke that percussion plate up against the pipe against the wall, but thinking about it now, they probably originally cut that because it had to fit up against the cabinet wall. That's how close it was. So it was just cut to fit up against the wall, never be able to shut it off. And he has added the door hardware that came with the new vanity that was missing before. And there was paint all over the tile floor, but he has gotten that up on the last trip. So that is good. I think that is about it. Other than that, it's great. Kitchen turned out nice. Got a light for it. Recessed lighting. Granite. And I think that is final review. Thank you very much.